High Level is a full CRM and marketing platform, and I've used some of the best in the SaaS industry. And we are live on LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, Twitch. We've got X rolling, Instagram, and a couple LinkedIn channels. So the guests are streaming from their channels too. Welcome to WinsDay, everyone. It is a really great night here in Ohio. What's it like where you are? Where are you all tuning in from? Put it in the comment. Let us know you're here by chatting with us tonight. We want to hear from you. This episode is all about you. So when you comment, we can put it up on the screen and you can engage in the conversation. That's why live streaming isn't going anywhere. So I want to tell you a little bit about Reveting. So WinsDay, this show is our flagship show. It's where it all began. It's been happening over 3 years, but now we're helping over 10 businesses go live on LinkedIn, YouTube, and other channels, and we're repurposing it into short form video and other marketing materials. So you start with one live stream and you turn it into a podcast, you turn it into your social post, you train your AI on your voice. And the reason it's not going anywhere is because AI can't replicate it. When you're here in the chat and you're asking questions and we're engaging with you in real time, that's a real human conversation and it's not going anywhere. We see it real time in TikTok. People are buying products off live stream. Same thing in B2B on LinkedIn. We're building thought leadership and we're building trust through LinkedIn Live. So if your business is ready to start doing that, maybe it's time for you to reach out to Reveting. We've got our prices listed right on our website at reveting.com. Go ahead and check it out. But otherwise, we're going to get right into this episode. But before I bring in the guests, I also have to mention Cherry Assistant because I couldn't do this episode without them. Cherry Assistant is the power behind Reveting. They help place us with virtual assistants across the world, mostly in South Africa and the Philippines for us. And they help with a lot of this. We've got Layla here. She's in the chat, in the background, producing the show. But maybe you need a virtual assistant that isn't a producer, but maybe is a bookkeeper or an executive assistant. I don't know, but it's time for you to delegate because that's really how you grow. So scan that QR code, or if you're listening on podcast later on, be sure to go to cherryassistant.com. And if you do, reach out to them. Let them know that you heard about them through WinsDay for $250 off your first month. So without further ado, let's get into our first guest here. Welcome to the show, Dr. Diane. And then our second guest, we've got Rich Smith, 2 guests on WinsDay because that's the style we do it. Welcome to the show, both of you.
Great to be here.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
So as warned, we're going to put a 2-minute clock up on the screen. And like we ask all the WinsDay guests, we want to know the real life you. So could you tell us your full life story from birth to what brought you to now?
I love it. Life story in 2 minutes or less. Everybody, I'm Dr. Diane Dye, but I wasn't always. I was a scrappy kid growing up underneath the poverty line, daughter of a struggling and eventually failed entrepreneur who developed a passion for helping other people, not follow in those footsteps, preserve that legacy. So I'll tell you a quick story. When I was a kid, I really wanted to go roller skating. And I, of course, didn't have the money. My mom didn't have the money. So I picked up the church directory and I smiled and dialed and I called everyone at church. And by the end of my smiling and dialing session, I had a ride to go roller skating. I was fed and I was taken back home. So it's not the number of times you get to yes that gets you to success. It's the number of times you creatively get past the no. And my upbringing gave me ample opportunity to practice that over and over and over again. I am a graduate of the University of Southern California 2 times. I went to USC Annenberg for my master's and USC Rossier for my doctorate in organizational change and leadership, where I learned truly how to help you experiment and get better without driving your organization into change fatigue, or what I call change chaos, where you're actually hemorrhaging money and people are getting gray hair because things are changing too crazy, too fast, and too incorrectly. So that's where my Brave Business model comes from, my Creating Critical Opportunity workbook, all of the things that have sprung forth from the culmination of my upbringing and my education and hitting 10 years in business as CEO of People With Consulting. Great to meet you all.
Yeah, that's amazing. I love how you called it a bold and brave business strategy. I look forward to hopefully learning more about that. Thank you so much for sharing. And Rich, how about you? Could you share your full life story?
Sure. So I may start at the end and work backwards. I think since Diane started at the beginning and work forward. So I've been the chief marketing officer of 7 different companies over the last 20 years in industries like financial services, healthcare, data, technology, even management consulting. And I found during that time that one of the things that really drives me is just working with organizations to help bring the great products and services that they have to market. Most mid-sized businesses and small businesses, the ones that fail, and many of them do fail, the vast majority do. And it's not because they have a bad product or have a bad service. It's because nobody knows about them and they haven't figured out a distribution methodology to bring what they do to the world. So that's honestly one of the things that drives me to do what I do today, which is I manage a growth studio, and we work with companies of all sizes, startup to very large organizations, and we help them get on a growth trajectory. And by implementing systems that allow them to succeed and grow revenue and profits over time. I got my start in marketing. I wish I could tell you I had some kind of grand plan for my career. I actually didn't. I started undergrad at Penn State. I grew up in Pittsburgh. I went to Penn State thinking I was going to be an engineer. Spent a couple years studying engineering, then worked a little bit in the field one summer, realized that wasn't for me. I didn't really know what was for me, so I went into economics and then got into marketing, and I've been there ever since.
That's incredible. Well, thank you so much for sharing. And I don't know, it sounds like a really great story to me. So, yeah, I always feel, like when I'm sharing my story, well, I didn't study marketing, but like, yeah, we don't have to bring that up, or I kind of stopped.
Yeah,
But
I only
anyway,
ever taken one class in marketing, and that was from the MBA. So,
yeah.
so what I learned, I've learned, in the field.
Totally, me too. It's the best way to learn anyway. And I mean, I feel like just growing up in capitalistic America, we all learn a little business, just like going to the store and buying things. And we learn marketing too, just like as a kid, looking at your favorite candy bar or toy and you're picking it out. You learn why, right?
Yeah, I fell in love with marketing early in my career and made a career out of it until I was tired of marketing to people outside of the company. So I started marketing to people inside the company, and that felt better.
Mm. I was just talking to my team about that today. I'm like, some companies, they have a whole team dedicated just to internal marketing. We're always focused. Well, we are helping other businesses market, that we're usually thinking about their marketing. And it's hard to sometimes think about our own marketing, let alone internal marketing. But yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that.
Yeah.
Hopefully
And
the team's listening. Yeah, go ahead.
can I add, as a CMO, that's one of my primary responsibilities. Yes, I had to be looking at the outside of the organization to see where trends were going and help the company move to meet those trends. But in
Mhm.
order to be successful, you've got to market internally, right? Your entire internal team needs to understand and actually not just understand, but also be bought in to your brand message and your brand promise and the purpose behind your company, or purpose, vision, mission, whatever you want to call it. And if you don't do that, you're just not going to succeed.
Mhm. Yeah, it's 100% correct. Would love to hear what the audience thinks about this. We've got AP in the audience. I saw Nina. I saw David. I saw who else is out there. Put a comment in there. Let us know where you're tuning in from and what do you think about all this? When did you all first, I don't know, experience marketing? Or when did you first realize that you were being marketed to? And I don't know, what marketing lessons have you all had? Maybe some of you have marketing degrees, maybe not. Or sales, because we're going to be getting into sales. So our first topic for tonight is exploring sales experimentation strategies. So Dr. Diane Dye, I believe this is your comment. Could you your topic? Could you kick us off on this?
Absolutely, I can. So, experimentation really starts with understanding what you think you know. And you have to really be willing to unlearn what you think you know, because as you experiment, things are going to change. The market's going to tell you something different. You're going to have hiccups in your supply chain. Something's going to happen, and you're going to have to be responsive to it. But if you are wearing the wrong mask or not using your masks appropriately, you are going to shoot yourself in the foot before you start. And I'll tell you one that is really endemic to sales, and I call it the only closer mask. And this is where you come into an engagement, whether it be a sales engagement or a marketing engagement, and you are just convinced that you're the only one that can push the go button. And so you test, you do everything that you need to, but ultimately you become this bottleneck because you're the only closer. You're the only one who can be in the big meeting. You're the only one who can meet with the agency. You're the only one. You're the only one. And when you're the only one, you stand in the way of forward momentum of progress. So understanding whether it's being a lone wolf, being a perfectionist, those are just a few of the 10 masks that I identified that are bias based, that are either to control yourself, control others, protect yourself, protect others, but they hold you back from experimentation. Even before you're doing A/B testing, even before you're holding listening tours or doing any of that, that's really important to address. Next one is, what does research look like? They say that the best flattery is imitation, but do you actually want to be imitating what's in the market, or do you want to differentiate? How do you do the research in a way that doesn't limit your ability to experiment because you have kind of a little bit of FOMO about what you see in the market, but it doesn't quite apply to the way you're doing things? Maybe challenges are what everybody's doing, but that's not really your vibe. Or maybe it's a podcast, or maybe it's some other tactic. What is the way that lights you up when you authentically lean into and research with your customers what lights them up, what lights you up, and you find alignment with that? You can move on to the next stage, which is picking your action steps and understanding what is the environment around your action step. When you understand that, you can have those conversations. You can create stakeholder centric strategy to have those conversations so that you're not just taking crazy action. I think that's the bad thing that Agile taught us as a methodology, that, oh, you just have to be quick, you have to change, you have to change, you have to change. Well, if you change so much, especially when you're talking about sales and marketing, you can really confuse your sales teams, marketing teams, you can confuse the market, you can really drive up the instances of mistakes. Like, all of that results from not taking measured action, or action where you're really knowledgeable about the environment that you're taking action in. Then once you're aware of that, you can validate it and then experiment around it and measure results. I call that the braver framework. So that's bias, research, action, validation, experimentation, and results measurement. And if you can do that and start framing things up with that mindset, you're going to be so much more equipped to do all the other methods of testing you know about: multivariate, A/B, focus groups, standardized surveys, all of that. But you'll just be so much more equipped to handle and to do that. And I see we have some questions in the chat. I see we have, how do you get teams across different departments to genuinely buy into the brand message and not just hear it? I think that might be for you.
Yeah. The quick answer to that is make them part of the process, right? People tend to not buy into things that are just handed to them or spoon-fed to them. But if you make your internal team part of the process, and of course, in a big organization, it's not like you can have everybody in sales or everybody in customer success or customer service be a part of the process, but you can get a small group from those areas. You can get delegates from those areas to be part of the process for creating the brand messaging. And when you do that, you set yourself up for success, because it's that participation in the process that leads to buy-in, which leads to people internalizing it, which leads to trust in what you're doing. And that really fuels that kind of internal momentum to get out there in the marketplace with a brand message that really resonates.
Absolutely. And we did have another question. This one is, I think, more for you, Dr. Diane. She says, I have a hunch that even introverts can be great in sales, but I hope you all can confirm that.
The internal processing is really valuable to that. I think that sometimes a gregarious extrovert isn't as high self-monitoring, and a high self-monitoring nature is really important, because the definition of that is you're able to observe yourself, monitor, and adjust your behavior in real time. And when someone's an introvert or an ambivert like me, you can really read the room, so to speak, but you can also ask questions that give you data along the way. Sometimes when someone's a little bit too extroverted and they have that pitch and they're going for it and they're like, hey, let me buy you a drink and do this and do that, they can kind of lose the sale and the social. Whereas the introvert can be a little bit more self-monitoring in the discussion. They can be a little bit more data-driven in the discussion, while also performing in a way that forms a deep one-on-one connection versus relying on the dopamine from multiple interactions and possibly losing data in the process.
Yeah, definitely.
I saw here in the chat too, if a company wanted to start applying the braver framework tomorrow, what's the first step you would recommend? It's the B, it's the bias. Before you start anything, you have to look at your intrinsic biases, the things that you may not be aware that you actually are biased to. And the way you can figure those out is by looking at the patterns of your decisions in the past. You can generally tell from past performance what present performance is going to be. And then there's those extrinsic biases where you're like, okay, yeah, I am absolutely the lone wolf. And I will crank on this alone without asking for input. And then here comes perfectionist until it's perfect. And then I'm the only closer. And I know this. And if I do that, then I can take action from that standpoint and even just start doing micro experiments around that. I mean, what does it look like when I start involving a few more people and testing that one thing?
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Test, test, test. What's your take on any of that? Anything else you'd add, Rich?
Well, I definitely think introverts can be great salespeople. I think, being really good at sales, yes, it is about relationships, but it's also really about the process and the
Mm-hmm.
systems, and not so much about having. I mean, not that it's great to have really good salespeople, so don't take this the wrong way, but we have this image of the rock star salesperson,
Mm-hmm.
and that's kind of a myth. Right. I think the best sales organizations really run on a regimented kind of disciplined process. And they're very aligned and connected with their marketing team, with their product team, with their engineering team. And that kind of connectivity makes the whole thing work because they understand that their job is not to go out and hunt. Their job is to close the business, the lead flow that's coming in. And so I think introverts are great at doing that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's even a book. I forget what it's called. And
Quiet by Susan Cain.
is that what it is? It's like all
Yes.
about being an introvert in sales.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So if Nina, if that's what you're looking at, that might be the book for you. I'm pretty sure you're an avid reader. So check that one out. But in the meantime, let's hop over to our second topic, the science behind brand messaging. I'm excited to hear what you have to say about this, Rich.
All right. Well, yeah, let's jump into it. So, I think a lot of people think of brand messaging and the word brand jumps out, right? And they think
Mhm.
it's branding. And you get this image of, Mad Men, Don Draper in the conference room pulling out some slogan that's amazing. And, you go on and you buy a bunch of TV ads. But that's not really the way effective brand messaging is built. Ultimately, what you're trying to do when you create your brand message is you're trying to accomplish a few things: differentiate yourself from your competition, but mainly deliver your message in a way that your target audience will be aware of it and will identify with it. And here's how you make that happen. So, I don't know if you guys have studied behavioral economics or not, or behavioral science, but there's a great book out there called Thinking Fast and Slow. It was written by a Nobel Prize-winning economist, Daniel Kahneman, published 2007. He's really the grandfather or godfather, if you will, of the whole field of behavioral economics, which is less than 20 years old. But what he had really identified through his research, which was done over 30, 40 years, was that we really almost have kind of two systems in our brains, two brains, if you will. There's system one and system two, is what he called them. And I'm just going to steal from that shamelessly. But system one is the older, the ancient part of your brain. Some refer to it as your primal brain. It's the automatic system that makes a lot of our decisions. It controls your breathing and your heart and your brain and your motion. It controls your reactions. When somebody throws a ball at you, you immediately reach up and grab it without thinking. Okay, well, that's system one that's doing that. And then system two is kind of your prefrontal cortex, right? Or what we think of as our cells. When we think in our brains, we're using our system two. The reality is that 95% of our decisions are made by system one, not system two. And again, system one is the kind of primal system that was built for survival. And when Kahneman and others have studied this closely, what they find is that there are something like 188 different cognitive biases that are created by this difference between system one and system two. And when you construct your brand messaging, you have to understand that 95% of your target audience's decisions are being made by their system one, not their system two. Ultimately, what this means for brand messaging is that, we have to start with emotion, because emotion is what drives that system one, right? System one is always looking for novelty, looking for things that are going to help with survival, danger, right? And so our decision-making process tends to be, we make an emotional decision, and then we rationalize it with logic later. So the job of a funnel, if you will, is you start out with brand messaging that wins the hearts, and then you get to the messaging that wins the mind and gives them a rational reason to make that purchase. So when you're constructing brand messaging, you can go do research with your target audience, and they will likely tell you things that they like, want, or need. And it's not that those are unimportant, but what you really have to do is drill through that and hear what they're not telling you. What are the pains? What are the fears that are driving what they like, want, and need? Because it's pain and fear that gets the attention of system one. So if you can develop your messaging in a way that delivers right to that pain or that fear, you can explain how your product or service is the best solution to relieve them of that fear and that pain. That's when you have an effective brand messaging platform.
Yeah, people forget about pain marketing, I feel like, a lot. It's real. Having them feel, we need them to feel their pain. We can't save them from their pain.
Yeah,
Even
and
if we have a
you really
desire, we're moving away from the pain. So it's still the pain, because I'm like, I want that, because if I don't have that, there's this pain right there that's like nipping at my back.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's why, lists of features doesn't work.
No.
Don't lead with lots of features, lots of about you. It's not about you, it's about your customer, right? I often tell clients, go out to your website and count the number of times you say we, our, or your brand name.
Yeah.
And who is your website really for? Is it for you, or is it for your customer, right? So you got to flip it around and put all of that language into the language of you, your, not we, our, because it's really about the customer. It's about them, what they're experiencing, and what you can do for them. They don't care about your features. They don't care about your benefits. They don't care about your company, honestly. They really don't.
They really don't.
What they care about it is what's in it for them, right?
Themselves. Yeah.
We're all consumers too. So we get it at some level, right? Like, we're all consumers as well as marketers and salespeople, and it's all about us, right? We're the center of our own universe. And if you're not speaking to people in that way with your brand messaging, you're not gonna cut through the noise. And there's a lot of noise today.
It's true. 100%. What would be your actionable advice to any marketers or wannabe marketers listening, who want to try to implement paid marketing in their strategy? I know one thing I always recommend to the team, I just brought it up earlier this week, or maybe it was last week, is reminding them of like the old school infomercials. Like, did you fall and you can't get up? Or like, like they lead with these pain questions, and it's like, yes. Or like, do you spend all day chopping your vegetables? Like, man, wouldn't it be nice if you could just have sliced veggies to throw in the skillet? Try the little like cruncher thing, whatever it is, and then they like pop it. I always think of those old school infomercials. Obviously, we don't want to be cheesy like that, but I mean, it's sort of the idea that I'm able to share to help people grasp it. How would you help explain, like, what tactics do you use, or what messaging do you use to get people to feel their pain?
Yeah, well, I mean, we could probably rattle off 50 different slogans that we all remember, and they're all the ones that last this test of time. Typically are dealing with some kind of pain resolution, right? Don't leave home without it. Okay. If you remember those American Express commercials and that tagline, it was all about the fear of being stuck when you're traveling. and not having a payment mechanism to get you back home, right? And again, we could go on and on about that, but I think if you're trying to do this and trying to get into thinking about your brand messaging and how to use pains and fears to help inform what you're doing, it really starts with taking the time to think through who is your target buyer. And let's say you're in the B2B world. So you're in the B2B world, who is your target buyer? So what industry, what role, what title, how long have they been in that role, right? Try to really understand who is the person who's making the buying decision. And in some cases, you'll have multiple roles that are involved, and that's okay. But start with that. And then you have to try to get into their heads and think about, well, what is it that they're really bothered about or afraid of? You know, if you're selling, let's say, well, people don't use these that much anymore, but you probably remember the days when you had a projector that you would take to a sales meeting, right? Projector was like this big brick thing, big and heavy. Well, that was painful to carry around, right? So just if you were marketing a new projector, which is smaller, easier to transport, you could go on and on about all the features and the resolution and the lumens and all that stuff, right? And it's just going to go right over your target customer's head. Or you could just basically say, hey, you could carry this big brick, or you could carry this tiny deck of cards, and they do the same thing. Which would you rather do? Right? It's speaking right to the pain. So that's kind of the point. And it really doesn't matter what product or service you're in or what industry. We all, as I said, we're all consumers as well. Your buyers are consumers, your buyers are people, and you just have to try to understand how to get that emotional response from them. And then once you have the emotional response, then you help them to rationalize the purchase decision.
Yes. Yes.
I was doing a sales training and I had them put a bottle of ibuprofen on their desk. And I had them label their brand of ibuprofen because they were the painkiller. They were the ones when they were having those sales conversations, their job was to understand where the pain was, agitate the pain, get in a real vulnerable discussion about that, and then connect that solution in with the resolution of the pain. And when they're able to do that, and they were able to open their ears and listen, and listening posts in an organization are so important, because that's where your customer's going to tell you. You don't have to come up with where their pain is. It is your job to open up your ears and listen to the pain, to not find some statistic du jour and go, there's the pain. The statistic said the pain's there. Well, it is or it isn't. Conduct a listening tour, do a customer survey, monitor things through your customer success department with your existing customers, and then you'll understand what people are really dealing with on the day-to-day. And because of external environments, those things can change. And especially in a B2B space, those things can change really rapidly. And the quicker you can jump on the pain or the fear du jour and connect it with your solution, when you have value metrics that you are clearly communicating through your marketing, you can drive to, what is the other side of the pain, which is relief. And what does that relief or aspiration look to you? And absolutely, pain marketing can be applied to overcoming client objections, because what's it worth to you what's it costing you right now to hold on to this pain? Sometimes people don't change until they're sick and tired of being sick and tired, but that can come to a point where you can really raise their awareness. So again, they drop that bias that they have against the fact that they really are experiencing something. They feel safe with you. They feel heard. And then they overcome their own objections at that point, because you listen and they feel heard. And that's so powerful, because that really develops affinity with a brand, with a sales organization, any of it.
Yeah, such a great point. What would you add to that question, Rich, in terms of campaign marketing be applied to overcoming client objections?
Yeah. So I just want to call out, there's a great comment in the chat from someone who said, so basically if it doesn't make people feel something, it's probably not going to stick. And that is so true. And as a CMO, if you talk to anybody who was on any of my teams, they probably will tell you that this used to make them crazy. But when I would see a piece of creative or a message or a new web page, one of the first questions that I would ask whoever was presenting it is, what am I supposed to feel? What is this supposed to make me feel? Because if we're not driving an emotion, it's not going to work. So that's just one of those principles you really have to apply to all of the messaging that you're putting out there. And that's not just on the marketing side, I think it's sales as well. It's the same story. And that brings us to overcoming sales objections. Yeah, 100%. That is all about. So objections are really feedback that you're getting from the customer. They're telling you what they're afraid of when they object to something. And they may not say it explicitly, but you have to listen for what they're really saying, because those objections are their fears. And you, as the salesperson, your job is to figure out, well, how your product or service will relieve those fears and speak straight to them. So a lot of the buying process from, I've been on the other side of the table, buying from lots of vendors and agencies and people who wanted to sell me things. But a lot of the buying process is simply de-risking. And so in order to de-risk, you have to reduce their fear. And that's why I really encourage you, listen closely to what the objections are, because they're telling you exactly what they're afraid of.
That's 100% true. Yeah. I love where this is going. If they don't feel something, it's not going to stick. That's Layla there making that comment. Awesome, Layla. She's an awesome marketer. Proud to say she works on team Reveting, helping a lot of our clients with their posts. And we're constantly talking about it. Like, if we don't understand what this business does, we're not going to be able to serve them. If we don't understand their strategy, we really got to how do they get something I feel like that really helps us is asking, how do you make money? How does the business make money? And usually what's the first entry level door? So for marketing, that's a really great place to start. So I digress. We're going to be getting into some more really hot topics here. And in just a moment, we've got marketing, experimentation, and practice, and why sales pitches fail to convert. We're going to get into those right after this brief message from Cherry Assistant and Reveting.
This is Mike, also known as Clean with Mike on Twitter. Mike hired a virtual assistant from Cherry Assistant about 2 years ago. Now he has a $50K per month business, fully managed by a remote operator in South Africa. His VA from South Africa does the following: closing inbound leads on the phone, Yelp and Google and Facebook, manages his CRM and Go High Level, deals with rescheduling, cancellations, any issues, hires and manages the cleaners, and sends them daily reports and updates. Mike has a fully cash flowing business managed by a remote operator for only $8 an hour. You can also hire a US equivalent worker in the Philippines, South Africa, Latin America for a fraction of the cost with Cherry Assistant. Be like Mike and grow your business with offshore staff.
If you're listening on podcast right now, we're showing a menu of services that they offer, including but not limited to lead generation, CRM management, prospecting assistance, sales presentation preparation, data entry and cleanup, customer support, project management, and so much more. At Reveting, we help B2B founders, executives, brands turn their live streaming into a real revenue channel. One live stream turns into a podcast. It turns into a social clip. It turns into email content like a newsletter and actual sales conversations. You get to have a lot of conversations with people when you have a podcast or a live stream like this. And if you want to be known, trusted, and remembered in your industry, without being online 24/7, worrying about your posting, this is what we do. Just head on over to reviting.com and let's build your show.
I want to give a quick testimonial for the Reviting team and Jessie. I was really nervous about doing lives. And so thanks to Jessie and her team, I've now been doing them for, I think, 7 or 8 months now. The other thing is they very much have helped me increase my reach and online presence. So thank you, Reviting and Jessie.
One of the problems that we struggle with is getting our brand out there. What Jessie and her team have been able to do for us is to take advantage of LinkedIn and the idea of going live on LinkedIn and using that platform to its fullest extent through the way they're able to take the live event and break it down into bite-sized posts. Your team shows up very organized. They were able to take what was limited in terms of how our brand shows up, but actually turn that into visualizations for the different shows, the video clips that are being taken, as well as the content within the posts themselves.
Jessie, I love what you and the team do. You make it so easy for me to get in, have a meaningful conversation with some amazing guests, and then watch the post-production. And I've been picking up 50 followers a day just because that content is resonating so well. And I've had a number of people reach out to me who want to be guests on the show. So it's working across a lot of different channels for me, and I can't thank you enough.
And I'm on mute. Sorry, I was like, I can't even handle this. I'm like gonna cry because that I love seeing our customers so happy about this. So thank you to all of them for leaving a testimonial. But I digress. Let's get into our third topic. Layla, could you bring it up on the screen? Marketing experimentation in practice. Thank you, Layla. But I believe this is your topic, Rich. Am I correct? Marketing
I can certainly talk about it. I think we
know.
teed up for Diane, though, to go first. But
Okay. That's what I thought. All right. So Diane, you're talking about marketing experimentation. So
I think we're all pretty aligned here in this panel and our expertise. And the way I experimented when I was a young senior brand manager, I think was one of the bravest experimentation periods of my life. I worked in the entertainment industry, and this was at a time where everything was just shiny and brand new, and experimentation was just at an all-time high in the entertainment industry because there just aren't the boundaries of other industries. This isn't pharma. This isn't something that has a lot of parameters on it. So we had a lot of fun. My number one tip for experimentation is really to help you understand how innovation works. Because innovation doesn't work where you bake the entire thing and you throw it out to everyone and then you pray. How it works is you have a V1. Think about your iPhone. Your iPhone did not pop out in its current version on day one. We had an iPhone 1, 2, 3, 4. These were fully baked products, but there were versions of them. So in innovation, think about it like first you have a skateboard to get around. And then you put a stick on it and you call it a scooter. And then you put a little motor on that scooter and you have a motorized scooter. And you think, well, a scooter really doesn't get me around so much, but I don't have a driver's license yet. So I think I'm going to ask for a golf cart. And then you have the golf cart and you move from a golf cart to your learner's permit, your driver's license, your actual full car. That is an innovation right there. Now, what you can do is you can timeline out your marketing and your market testing into these innovation phases. So phase one, we're gonna test out a message, and maybe we're gonna do an A/B test split where we're gonna send half the messaging to one part of a segment, half the messaging to another part of the segment, but still not the whole list. You're going to be able to see some metrics there. You're going to be able to observe the data coming in and have the data make the decision for you and which one you actually fully roll out with. The utilization of the of the phase is going to tell you everything. And that's when you look at data, when you listen to your customers, you see themes and patterns versus acting on what we call anecdotal evidence. When one person says something, yeah, exactly, right? Like the iPhone 1 didn't do it. It wasn't 100% there, but it was still enough of a product to become a next version product and a next version product. So we always need to be tweaking and moving and adjusting and massaging. And when we find that thing that converts, we double down on what works. And when you double down, you see where the customers are coming in from. You see the messages that work. The data starts to tell a story. Your customers start to tell a story. And then you can safely say, all right, let's add more budget to that. And you add more budget to that and you lean in. But you also have to become incredibly aware of what's also impacting things, because trends can change and shift and whatever. This is not a Showtime rotisserie. You do not set it and forget it. You have to always be conscious, aware, and have enough humility that you're neither too good to nor not good enough to switch things up, to be able to pivot, to be able to change, to be able to iterate. Exactly. Tweaking, adjusting, testing. That is the name of the game, and noticing those patterns.
Yeah, 100%. The one thing that is constantly true about marketing is that nothing is constant. It's always changing. There's always something new. Looks like David says, thank God I never had an iPhone 1. Can you imagine how bad the product would have been? Tweaking, adjusting, testing, that's the name of the game. Layla knows it. And noticing the pattern makes all. Yes, just like a good researcher, looking for the pattern is so important. But also listening to your audience. And I mean, depending on your capacity, there is data you can get on your audience to kind of learn about their behaviors and like, what platforms they're on and stuff like that, if you're able to do that sort of market research. But we're not always able to do that kind of market research. He says, I like the progression of product with the scooter example. Yeah, that was good. What might you add to this conversation, Rich?
Yeah, just to underscore the importance of doing marketing experimentation, and making sure that when you do it, you go into it with a clear understanding of the so what factor. Like, let's say that it works. Let's say that you get a particular result. So what? Okay, what does that mean? What's actionable about it? Because you need to design your experiments in a way that you're going to learn something that is ultimately actionable that you can put into practice. As I've been a CMO of B2B and B2C companies, in the B2C world, I would typically have about 10 to 15% of my marketing budget allotted to testing. And the reason is, I think what you pointed out earlier, Jessie, was, things change. Like, the world is not static. Customers aren't static. New products are coming out all the time. New competitors are coming out all the time. And, if you're not constantly testing, you're going to miss those inflection points. And then your business is going to be way behind. In the B2B world is similar, not the same scale. So maybe you don't portion the budget quite the same way, but the principles are the same. You got to go into it understanding, all right, what are we testing? What are we really trying to learn? And what's going to be actionable about that learning?
Yeah, definitely. 100%. Anything else you'd wrap us up with on this topic, Dr. Diane?
Yes. Lack of willingness to experiment put entire businesses out of business during COVID. And it's detrimental, and it has the potential to be detrimental to your business if you are not willing to shift up what you are doing to better serve your clients or keep business going in a unique and new way, because regulations have changed, because we have a public health emergency, because I don't know, the sky turned purple one day and people now are afraid to go outside. Any number of strange things can happen in this world, and how you adjust to that and listen during that and get creative during that and be willing to shift up status quo. Don't be so tied into status quo that everything you tried to let go of has fingernail marks in it. And that's what some people do because they're so in love with their businesses. They're so in love with their babies. They're so in love with V1 of their original policy or their product or their campaign or whatever. So they sink their nails in. And then as all the circumstances, including the customer, are trying to pull it away, they're going, no, I can't leave status quo. No, it's uncomfortable. Your own pain can sink your company. So you need to open your ears and open your heart and open your ability to be brave and do something different.
Yeah, try something new. Absolutely. I'm so glad I tried something new. I was a full-time CMO just 4 years ago, trying to encourage a company to go live. Well, actually, I was trying to encourage them to start a podcast. Then I started testing tools and I'm like, this live thing is kind of cool. But yeah, try something new. It could lead to something completely new for you. But also just like marketing's constantly changing. So we have to keep up on it. So fear of leaving status quo can be the thing that tanks the business. Good perspective, 100%. All right, we are running out of time. We need to get to our final topic. Why sales pitches fail to convert. So now we're over to you, right, Rich? We're both talking about sales and marketing.
Yeah, as I said, I think we could be interchangeable on a lot of these topics.
Exactly.
Yeah, so I'll be brief about this one because I think we've talked about a lot of the concepts that go into this topic as well. We've already talked about today. So oftentimes sales pitches fail to convert because you haven't developed messaging that's going to resonate with the emotional brain of your target audience. And you also have to understand the buyer psychology, right? We were just talking about status quo bias. That is one of the biggest barriers to selling. And that's one of the biggest reasons why your sales pitches don't convert, is because the default is the safe option, right? The status quo is the safe option. Don't rock the boat. Don't make changes. If you're the executive that brings in a new software package or a new vendor, then you're taking personal risk if that doesn't work out well, right? And big companies are wired to eliminate personal risk, or people are wired within big companies to eliminate personal risk. The other thing you have to understand is another little bias called confirmation bias. So people are not listening to your sales pitch objectively. They're listening through their own lens and looking for you to say things that confirm what they already believe. So that can be another really big barrier to getting your sales pitch to resonate with people. The last one that I'll mention is loss aversion. And we as humans, we experience the pain of loss to a much higher degree than we enjoy the pleasure of a gain. In fact, there's been a lot of research on this, and it's roughly 2 to 1, 2.3 to 1 is the exact ratio. So when you are pitching to a potential buyer, you have to take into account that when they say something like, well, it's just too expensive, or that price is too high, they're not just talking about the price of your product. They're talking about all of their costs to implement your product. And those can be hard costs like internal staff or IT that's got to get involved. They could be soft costs, just the risk, the political capital that they have to expend within the organization to get that through. So when you're putting your pitch together, you have to take that into account, and you have to present the value that you're able to deliver. And that value needs to be at least 2.3 times what the cost is. and that includes all of the costs, not just the price of your product.
That was such a good whole section there, Rich. We're gonna have to make sure we get a time marker on that and make a clip of that. I loved everything you just shared. It feels so relevant. I see you nodding, Dr. Diane. What would you say on that?
Well, the cost of change always has to be lower because the resistance to change can climb. And the more resistance to change you have, and that can be triggered by the cost of change, that can be triggered by the motivation to change, the organizational support to change. Think of especially sales as kind of a mini change management project. You are asking them to change something. And you have to build significant value for them to say, yes, it is time for this change. I trust you. You build trust by asking open-ended questions, by listening, by echoing back what they say. And confirmation bias, for sure. What you focus on increases. So if you notice them really focusing on something, get them to focus on another aspect and allow that to increase, to decrease their resistance. Begin to focus on whatever you need to yourself to put you in the right mindset for a close as well, because what you tell yourself, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. So there's a mindset play to this too. It's not just messaging. It's not just, what you do during the conversation. It's also what you think about the conversation that you're even having and how you can connect from an emotional standpoint and a mindset standpoint with that customer to come into parity, to come into alignment. Otherwise, you're going to be dealing with polarized opposites. You're going to be struggling. You're going to feel a push-pull, and you're not going to be in flow.
Yeah, 100%. Such good feedback. What were you going to say something on that, Rich?
And if you go in talking about yourself, like all the great things about your company, your features, your benefits, the services you provide, if you go in with like charts about the ROI that the client can expect or the returns that they're going to get out of it, all of that stuff is being filtered through a confirmation bias lens that's intended to keep them or to justify the status quo so that they don't have to make a change. So your buyer is likely discounting all of that data that you're bringing to them. So if you're not leading with going back full circle to where we started the conversation, if you're not leading with the pain, the fear, those things that you resolve, you're never going to get to the point where you can make an ROI argument.
Yeah, you have to lead with discovery. If you do not lead with discovery, there's an automatic assumption of you're just here to sell me. You don't care about me. I'm just a number. But when you lead with discovery, you lead with questions and connection, you increase those chances that you're going to get trust and you're going to be able to accelerate the conversation where they'll trust you enough to even tell you what the real pain is. Until then, they're masked up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%. Such a good topic. I could talk about this all night long, but we got to do the guru of the week. So I'll let Layla take it away with our guru of the week clip real quick. The guru of the week. Ooh, the guru of the week. Ooh. Okay, you heard it. I don't have to sing it anymore. So drum roll, please. Who are our gurus of the week this week?
So my guru of the week is Irit Izeps, and Irit is the Chief Customer Officer for CSM Practice, and they are a leading firm in sales enablement and customer success management. They are the ones that taught me all about success metrics and value metrics in selling. So important whether you're doing sales enablement or you're doing CX to have your hands around that.
And mine is Scott Cohen. So Scott was a founding partner, managing director of an advertising agency by the name of Quattro, and a longtime friend. We worked together for over 20 years. I brought that agency into probably 4 or 5 different companies where I was the CMO. Scott was an amazing marketer and salesperson and just a real light in our industry. Unfortunately, we lost Scott a couple of weeks ago, passed away suddenly. And so I just wanted to bring him up today to just pay a little tribute to one of the most amazing people that I've ever run into in this field and a very, very good friend.
Well, thank you so much for sharing both of those. I mean, they sound like incredible leaders. Um, and yeah, well, thank you very much. I appreciate, well, that was a very heartfelt Guru of the Week segment.
I
So
didn't mean
thank
to bring
you.
it down, but
You didn't. No, sorry
on
for
my
your
mind.
loss.
I think he's a really important person and great
Yeah,
agency. I recommend that people check them out.
I love that. Let's celebrate him. Sounds like he was a great businessman. So thank you so much for sharing. I love that. A great tribute. So thank you so much for sharing your Guru of the Week. And before we wrap up, could you both just tell us a little bit more about what yourself? We want to know more about who you serve, how you serve them, and if they could be served by you, how do they reach you?
All right. So for me, I am the founder and CEO of People Risk Consulting. I help founders, CEOs, C-level executives experiment so that they don't throw their organizations into change fatigue, or what I call change chaos. And if you want to work with me or possibly even be on my masterclass, which is also live, called Brave Business, go to www.peopleriskconsulting.com. I'm also an open networker on LinkedIn. So please connect with me there, Dr. Diane Dye. Drop me a DM and tell me that you saw me on Reviting.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. And how about you, Rich?
Sure thing. So I'm the founder of the Rich M. Smith Growth Studio. I also am a keynote speaker, a angel investor, and host of the Revenue Science podcast, where we mainly speak to CEOs. We have CEOs as guests who talk about how they've scaled their companies and how they implement revenue systems to drive growth. Easiest way to get in touch with me is to go to my website. It's richmsmith.com. Really easy name to remember, probably one of the more generic names out there. And you can also find me on LinkedIn and other social networks.
Awesome. Beautiful. Well, it was truly an honor to speak with both of you today. Thank you so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate you spending the last hour with us. And, we're only a few minutes after, but want to just share with people real quick. Next week, we've got another awesome episode planned with Michelle Hamilton and Ivan Borovikov. Hope I'm saying that right, but we will find out next week. So until then, thank you again, Dr. Diane Dye and Rich Smith, for joining. Everyone, make sure you go follow them, connect, send a message. Make sure you tell them that you saw them on tonight's show. Other than that, I'll see everyone next week.